Hello everyone, and welcome to Reverse the Verse live from Foundry 42 in Frankfurt. Today is November 25th, I think so, 2016. I'm Brian Chambers, the development director here at the Frankfurt office. For those of you that don't know, Reverse the Verse is CIG and Foundry 42's weekly live stream. It follows the next day after Around the Verse, where we bring a couple members of the team that showed off some stuff during that show. It gives you guys the opportunity to ask them some questions based off of what they do, so you can get a little more detail, a little more specifics of what you guys are after. If you want to submit questions, where we pull them from our website. So if you go to robertspaceindustries.com, go into the chat and preface your questions with the word question in a bracket. That's the only place where we actually pull them from. So jump in there and give us whatever questions you have. This week we will have two guests on the show. We will have David Sibo.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah.
He's a weapons artist here in Frankfurt. We'll also have Todd Pappy, who's our design director. So, David, thanks for taking the time coming on with us and everyone else. As a weapon artist, so what do you do here? What is your day like? What do you do on a daily basis?
Well, as a weapon artist, we are a little team of 4 persons, and we are doing, of course, FPS weapons, ship weapons, and also textures for weapons. And as you could see in the last episode, the multi-tool and the grenades. So not only weapons, but also some tools are involved in our.
I guess you kind of. It's almost like the multi-tool is almost like a weapon, at least when you look at it. I mean, if somebody pointed that at me, I would be scared.
Well, yeah, of course, it looks a little bit like a weapon, and that cutter module has a laser, and I don't know if it has some damage if you're like running into it. Maybe it would get damaged a little bit at least.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, so how long have you been here? You've been here a little bit now.
I started here in May.
Cool.
And when I started here, I was working a lot on the workflow with our lead artist Tobias.
Yeah.
We worked on the textures. We worked on the workflow itself, and then we started to rework a lot of the weapons you see in the actual update, in the 2.6 update. All these weapons have been retextured and a little bit reworked to have a PBR materials, physically based.
And based off of workflow and so on, then I'll jump in with the first question. Tell me a little bit about the process and kind of the life of a weapon, if you will, right? Like, where does the idea first come from, and then how does it get to you guys, and what is that process you go through?
Yeah, okay. We get a concept at first. Mostly it's 2D, and some of the concepts are 3D. And then we, discuss it in our team, what we like, what we don't like, work a little bit on it, change like the size and the materials, stuff like that. And then we try to make a block out that we try out in the engine. And then if all the sizes and everything works out, then we discuss it with our art director, Paul Jones. And then we start working on it, make the first iteration of it, and then it goes back, discussing it. And from that point on, it's just finalizing, just adding details and trying to get it into the engine and put it over to the animators.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, at one point it'll go through rigging and all that as well, and and then effects will jump on it and find, okay, are there unique effects attached to this, and then are there unique sounds attached to this weapon?
For us, it is important that the art side is mostly covered before it gets into animation.
Of course.
It doesn't need a complete rework and animation rework.
Yeah, I think it's also, in my experience too, it's also, as you said, like, going through those gates where it gets reviewed and signed off and made sure it fits for functionality, make sure it fits for aesthetic and the other class of weapons, right? That it's visually falls in line with some and visually is different from others, right?
Yeah, each manufacturer has its own style guides. Like the Klaus and Werner weapons now are completely made in green, and some other weapons like the Kaztak weapons have their own pirate style made of black material and with some red parts to look a little bit more badass.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Awesome. So some questions are coming in. Now I may throw some to you that you can't answer and just, let me know, right?
Sure.
Are there any plans for non-lethal weapons for the player that you know of?
Non-lethal weapons.
Yeah.
So, non-lethal weapons. Maybe what I could think of is maybe shields or maybe drones that are non-lethal, just like getting information.
Okay.
Camera systems or stuff like that. That is non-lethal. But well, a lot of the stuff we make, like 99%, will be lethal.
Will be lethal. Well, as it should be, right? I guess. Let's see what else here. Will weapons for other players be low or high poly?
For other players.
Yeah, so you have your own, right? You need it to look dialed in, but
we try to make it as efficient as possible. We have different LOD steps, level of detail. So if you're like a few meters away, then the first LOD kicks in, and then the second LOD kicks in, and each LOD step has half polygons. Yeah, and the mid mapping is the reduction of texture resolution also kicks in.
Now, if you're close enough though to an opponent, will you ever see the highest level LOD then at that point?
Yes, of course. If you're really close to an enemy or a friend, then you see the highest LOD.
So ideally then, and especially with the aesthetic that we're after and the kind of the quality that we keep for ourselves, you're always going to see the weapon in its best light then. I mean, we're going to switch those LODs only, at the best time that we need. But.
Well, we try to make that LOD not too aggressive, and also make it, for example, the first LOD of a weapon will be visible from like 3 or 4 meter distance, and you can't tell the difference. Because actually we have a good program that automatically generates these LOD steps, and then we optimize it, and you can't really tell the difference.
That's cool. That's cool. Another question coming in. There's a lot. Here's one I actually hadn't thought of. Are you making a variety of unique sights on each gun? And if so, do you know how many, so on and so on?
Yeah, I just built an iron sight for a bearing weapon, right? Like 1 week ago I did it. And we have an attachment system, so you can change the attachments on each weapon. And for example, a scope, iron sight, or maybe some more sci-fi attachment to it, or a laser pointer, or a grenade launcher, maybe stuff like that.
Is there any type of system and then kind of unifies the amount or the types of attachments then, or is that really unique then based off of each weapon itself?
Well, I think it's a little bit story driven. So pirates maybe don't have like the fanciest attachments on their pirate weapons, but I don't know, that's more like a system design question maybe.
No, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Another question. Do the weapons themselves have damage states? Will they show wear and tear from use?
Yes, we have a new system that's a wear and dirt system that has an in-engine slider, so you can put that slider up and down. I think Tobias showed it in some of the older ATB videos, like half a year ago or something, where he first showed it. And
some of that detail in the wear and tear too, I was looking at, was nuts.
Yeah,
I mean, it looked really, really good.
Good thing is we have very high resolution materials, and we can the wear just cuts a hole into that material and shows a material lying under it. So it's basically two materials on top of each other.
That's cool. Cool. Love this question that just came through. All it says is flamethrower ?
Well, flamethrower, it's not the optimal weapon for space combat because there is no air in space and the flame would just go out. I know flamethrowers are cool and I really like them myself, maybe for planet combat or in space stations, but I think in space it just doesn't work.
Yeah, that's true. Here's one I think I know the answer for, but I'm going to ask it anyways to see what input. Have you worked on any alien weapons?
Yes, the Vandul race, we have first concepts for it, and our ship artists worked on first iterations of missiles and weapons for ships, but this is not in the final stage as far as I know.
Yeah.
So this is to come in. I think maybe you will see it in the near future.
Yeah. That's cool. Let's see what else we have here. Will we be seeing any heavy explosive FPS weapons anytime soon? RPG, minigun, railgun, etc., or are those not planned?
Right now, I'm working on a railgun. I'm finalizing it, so it's in the final stages of the, we call it LOD 0. So the main weapon and the main art is nearly done, and the integration into the game, the animation, the VFX effects, and so on, still needs some tweaking, but the weapon itself is close to be finished here.
That's cool. That's cool. What would you say an average, and I know it will be hard, but time from, hey, here's an approved concept and it's handed to you guys, and with the process and workflow?
It heavily depends on the size of the weapon, the detail of the weapon. As an example, the multi-tool. It took me about 3 weeks to integrate it into the engine and make it available for the animator. And the problem is to fill the gaps. Like, you get the concept and some detail is missing. You have to think what fits into this area, how this works, which parts are moving. And sometimes you need to model hidden details that only people get to see when they're like getting the module off and putting another module in. So this detail needs to be relatively, have a good quality, and that takes some time, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I want to preface though too is a lot of things are coming through as far as the non-lethal weapons, a lot of questions that come through. Because we don't have all the answers, or David doesn't have all the answers right now, it doesn't mean that they're not planned, but based off what the current workload is and what he's owning, specifically, it's not in his plans. I mean, as an example, like I think we were talking the other day, like you don't do rockets and you don't do the ship weapons and so on. So each artist, in a sense, has their thing that they're owning in a way, right?
Yeah. Right now, I'm just doing FPS stuff, and we have one senior artist just working on ship weapons and rockets, as you've seen in the latest AV. And sometimes we're working a little bit in between, like doing detailing, or we're doing texture work for ship weapons and FPS. So that's not 100% clear.
Another question here. What, if anything, can you tell us about the difference in weapon specs between different manufacturers? And does it have an influence on the visual aesthetic or vice versa? So does each manufacturer kind of have its own spec and one influences the other, or?
Well, in terms of technical details, I think, of course, the ammunition differs, and in terms of influencing each other. I think all manufacturers for FPS weapons use same ammunition, so that's one part that all manufacturers have. And in terms of style, it's completely different.
Yeah.
So you have pirate weapons, you have really polished bearing style weapons, and so on.
Cool. Well, what would you say is the favorite bit that you've been able to work on so far while you've been here?
I really like the multi-tool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the concept. The first concept I got was really good.
Mm-hmm.
So I really liked how it looked, and I only needed to detail it and bring it into the engine, optimize it. And if you get a good looking concept, then you can try to push it beyond, and that's what I really like. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, with the multi-tool's been around for a while in various forms. I was I don't even remember the time frame now, but I was at the very first performance capture shoot we did in Ealing Studios. Well before we had a final model, but we had a concept, and we had a concept to scale. So we had actually built a replica of that, crudely out of wood, but it had the base functionality of how it folded out. That way the actors could physically have something.
Yeah, and the multi-tool exists for, I think, 2 years, but I'm not too sure about it. The main problem with the first version was it was too big. It was like this big, and well, we had to. And another problem is a lot of the old weapons and tool stuff is not made in PBR, so all the materials didn't work in our current workflow. So we would have needed to edit it anyway. So we just polished it, made it better, and well.
Here's a question on the multi-tool itself that you would absolutely know, I would assume. What is the amount of tries used in the multi-tool LOD0 mesh?
It's around 32K polygons, and each LOD step has half of it.
Okay.
So, but an interesting thing about our current workflow is we don't work with standard baking from high poly to low poly, and we are using same technique as the ship artists use. So the overall size of it and the memory usage is in some cases lower than the old workflow. It is not so much dependent on the polygons, the overall memory usage and so on.
Cool. For the multi-tool, do you think that we've seen all of the uses of it, or do you think they could throw more into it? I mean, other people were asking, could it be used for healing? Could it be used for other things, right? So,
well, we want to add some more modules in the future, but right now there are no concepts for it. Yeah. And we maybe need to discuss it and see where it fits in. And one idea, for example, was to make it into a weapon, but I don't know if that ever happens.
Yeah. You just throw a different button on it, right? The beam comes out a different color, it's got a different sound. You're sorted, right? That's cool. Well, awesome. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you and the guys are busy. And I know this is his first time. I think you did amazing. So thank you so much for taking the time. We're going to take a really short break. And after the break, we will bring in Todd Pappy to talk about Star Marine and kind of what we showed on that breakdown for ATB. So see you in just a bit. Great, coming on. Hey everyone, we are back. If you're still with us, thanks for coming, Todd. So this is Todd Pappy, our design director here in the Frankfurt office. We've done stuff like this a couple times. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Usually it's pre-recorded though, so it's not live.
No.
Yeah. So hopefully you don't mess it up.
I'll try not to.
Okay, thank you. So some people may be watching for this for the first time, never seen me, never seen you.
Okay.
As a design director, what do you do here in the Frankfurt office?
Well, since I'm design director for the company, it's basically dealing with Chris, Aaron, Tony, and Nick Elms, and basically the other design leads that we have, as well as the other leads that we have within the company, making sure that Chris's vision, as well as Aaron's and Tony's vision, gets propagated to everybody. And then if there's any issues that need to be smoothed out, then I help that process.
You know, I've had the opportunity to ask you that question a few times, and I think you kind of almost verbatim give me the straight answer.
I try to.
It all makes sense, though. So this week you gave some history on Star Marine, mm-hmm. right? And that was cool to see, and included, I think, people from Los Angeles studio, people from
This is a global effort.
It absolutely is. And in the live stream, we showed a bunch of Star Marine, right? Yeah. So in your mind, having been that close to it and working on it, how do you think that was perceived? Watching people play and seeing that and knowing that it's live, right? So if the bugs are there, they're out.
Well, seeing people play it, seeing people react to it, that's always a positive thing.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's in the complete state that we want it to be in, we know it's not there yet. Mm-hmm. We're missing stamina. We're missing a lot of the tactical elements that we feel would make this game feel more like what we've said it was going to feel like.
Yeah.
So if we're right now, the only real way that we have to punish the player is by increasing your respawn time. But mm-hmm. if we adjust that to respawn within waves, or if we completely remove that and we have it based off of revive, well, then it's really on your team and you working together as a squad. But we're missing some of those things. So as soon as those get introduced, we'll go through and we'll readjust the game modes and adjust the tuning of it.
I think that's in my experience, that's been some of the hardest stuff, because you have all these individual elements that global teams are working on.
Yeah.
Once they come together, then that's really when some of that chore works, to make sure that those loops are there, the fun's there, that you're not punishing people too much, you're not rewarding too much.
And a lot of the times when we get our code or we get our features are maybe within weeks or sometimes days of a release.
Yeah.
So going through and saying, I think this is good, and then once it goes out to the public, then again we do the readjustments and everything like that. But I mean, for the most part, this is a live product. We have to roll with the punches, good or bad, and do the adjustments from there.
Cool. Let's jump into some questions. We got questions rolling in now. So maybe I may throw you some that you can't answer.
That's fine.
Tell me to be quiet, but nicely. We saw destructible windows. Are there any other areas or materials that are destructible? Any effects from them, like decompression or smoke, etc.?
We haven't got any of our decompression working. That is one of the things that we are pushing towards. So basically,
but it will be there.
Yeah, that is from a design standpoint. That's been proved. In fact, we finally got our rooms and atmosphere working for what we consider our first ship, and then from a player standpoint, getting oxygen and stamina and breathing, blood oxygen levels, everything that would go into decompression, or what designers would call buffs or debuffs when you're dealing with oxygen deprivation or those types of things. That system will be worked on after we go out with 2.6. Cool. So I do imagine seeing that stuff in the future.
Awesome. Let's see here. Can we fight with our fists?
CR wants that. We have done a melee design of it, and it's not fight night, you know. And
I mean, we did see the guy getting taken out with the knife.
And working on previous melee games and stuff like that is not to that quality or anything. But it was basically simple punch dodge.
Block. Kind of deflect. And, Okay, that makes sense. Any plans for a CTF/bomb mode for Star Marine? I don't know if you can get in the modes.
We haven't talked about a CTF or bomb mode. If we do anything in the future, I guess what I'd be pushing the guys towards would be kind of a mixture between AC and Star Marine. So if we can get some of that asymmetrical game mode where you've got the ships in there as well as the FPS, and what would be interesting in taking down a ship where basically it's more of a, I guess, attack defend, where you actually have to go down onto a ship, take it out, and EMP it or destroy it, or how, or I don't know, or if there's a derelict ship there that you need to go and pull parts from and to basically fix your own ships. I don't know. These are all things that we've talked about internally, but nothing concrete yet.
Any plans for class-based gameplay, such as for medics, for example?
I think this will be more of a when we have gadgets in and working, and so depending on how you want to outfit your team. Ideally that requires right, but ideally that requires communication between you and the rest of your team.
Absolutely.
And this is what I want to carry in. This is what I want to do. Versus a hardcore like Battlefield where I choose medic or I choose engineer or I choose this. So I prefer it to be a little bit more fluid.
Anything new on Capture the Idris gameplay mode?
Well, that was kind of the idea that we were talking about. The thing is, I think LA came up with that idea, and the Frankfurt design had a different idea. I think UK and Austin each have had their own different ideas on top of that. So whether it's an Idris or Starfarer or something else, that's kind of the idea that we're talking about. Something that feels unique to Star Citizen.
Absolutely. I mean, it gives you so many points to go through and play and so on. Cool. Will EMP grenades affect energy weapon in your HUD?
The goal for that is yes, as well as your environments. So, and that's some of the stuff that LA code is working on right now, where setting up the rooms and the environments, and then once we get power piping through there, and then we just had a recent talk regarding light probes and environments, and what happens if all the lights go down, and art basically saying it's not going to look pretty, and code saying it's not going to look pretty, and design saying yes, this is what we want, so it's kind of those struggles between the different disciplines. And
that's cool.
Then
the EMP, I would imagine. I mean, if you just fundamentally think about it, everything's being charged and run, right?
Through power.
Through power. So I remember even talking with your design team on like the satellites, right? And here's an important satellite, and somebody comes and okay, now I need to reinforce my satellite to shield it so the EMP doesn't blast it and cut off my transmissions.
Exactly, and that's what we want is the player looks at a space station, player looks at a satellite, player looks at a ship. Or even at another player and understands this is how these things work, and they all work the same across the board.
That's cool. Will humans ever be able to use Vandal weapons?
Yet to be determined. Obviously, we've done it with Vandal ships, and we've done it with GN stuff. We have talked about GN weapons, and we do have some design briefs for those. But with Vandal weapons and us nailing those down, Right now we have 3 in there. Sorry, two weapons. And right now the plan is not for humans to do that, but that might change as we go forward in the future.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I mean, it's a bit of a balance as well, right? I mean, there's a specific functionality with them. Does it make sense? Yet at the same time, if I can pick up other weapons, should I be able to pick up this? So it's
I think part of it's going to be metrics. So because those guys are, I think 2+ meters, like 2.5 meters compared to the 2-meter character. When you start putting something in their hands, it looks ridiculous.
Exactly.
Sticks, basically a meter out in front of you. Yeah. So these are all things that we'd have to work out.
Of course.
But it might be that somebody takes Vandal tech and puts it into human weapons or something like that. So.
Another question: will there be any permadeath modes in Star Marine that you know of?
Not right now. It is definitely something that we've talked about, and we have some hardcore FPS players that work on it, and it is something that we feel once we have Revive in, we'll be able to flip that switch, and we'll be able to make it so that your life matters more. And right now we feel that if there is permadeath, or it's one shot, you're out, then right now it's just a little too punishing with not having the radar working the way that we want it to, and a few other things that would help make the experience more user friendly, but at the same time we want to make sure that the player feels like, oh, that was my bad. I'm doing it versus this guy. This guy screwed me.
It's interesting too. It's always, I mean, if you got 20 pieces that need to go in, and if the whole design and plan is based on those 20, although 10 are there and you're playing, you don't really get the full feel and the full churn and the full feedback loops and all that until it's all in there.
Correct.
And then once it's in there, you really need to dial in each one and turn it up and down a little to go, okay, is this working? Is it clicking?
Yeah, and again, this will be a process.
Absolutely.
And we want it to be, because the way that we're crowdfunded and everything like that, we want it to be a process that everybody goes on with us. So.
That's cool. This guy or girl is talking about a free-for-all area. Do you have a free flight mode, meaning no time or score? You're just in there exploring the mechanics.
Right now we have elimination, so that one could be something that you play on your own. And whether it's a free flight mode, that's still yet to be determined, based off of servers and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Mag boots? Question mark.
No. What we will be doing is, because our geometry and the way we build environments is extremely complicated, best way to explain it would be if you're going between a door jamb or something like that. If you're walking on the floor, you've got a clean passage, versus if you're walking on the ceiling, then you don't have a very clean passage. So what we want to do is we just want to align to surfaces, and once you align to that surface, then at that point you'll be able to walk on that surface, and your EVA suit will keep you aligned to that surface, but not mag boots as kind of the traditional sense.
Yeah, of course. So what's the next thing that's the closest to come online, that's almost there, that we're going to be able to get in and then start playing with?
Before 2.6 goes out, or after 2.6?
Before 2.6.
Well,
what are we on right now today that's almost there and it's being dialed in?
Well, if we're doing bug fixes, we're Echo 11's art is coming in, and it's looking good. But at the same time, it's still not there yet. And I know that the guys are busting their ass to get it there. It's just from a design standpoint, I want to be able to play it. I want to be able to tune it.
Of course.
But we can't do that just yet. HUD is coming in as well as the front end. So those are the things that we're really kind of waiting on. And then internally, we've talked about the round-based spawning. CR, I believe, is for it and would like to push for it. So that might be one of the last kind of big gameplay changes that goes in.
Cool. As far as what is the size of the design team?
Size of
now,
wait. It's the overall design team.
Yeah. So I would say globally, and part of that is going to be hard to preface because not every designer in the company is all working on Star Marine, right?
With including open recs that for people that we want to hire. 49
designers, and that's between system and level.
That's right? Between system, level, tech design, across the board.
That's cool.
We've got
I guess on a kind of a direction question then in your position, I mean, you've been making games for a while, but now with multiple studios, and as an American living here in Frankfurt, which I kind of know a little bit about, how are you finding that experience as far as working with, with other studios, both internationally now and all over the place? I mean,
I mean, most of my day is spent on Skype. So going through, that's from you. I don't know where that's from. Most of my time spent on Skype. So it's just going to be that I'm talking with designers. I'm talking with the leads, and then for me, it's I trust the leads, and then it's them working directly with their teams, or if there's something that's Star Marine specific or AI specific or FPS specific, then I deal directly with those guys. And it's or John and I will deal directly with those guys. But it's, I mean, I think of it as rewarding, but at the same time, it's more about watching those teams succeed.
Absolutely.
Versus,
I mean, that's one thing that's definitely unique about with what we do, and all the, I know there's other developers and so on that have multiple studios, but I mean, literally, their video conferencing for us is just an extension of the team. Right. Every single day, where, as you said, you're probably more than anybody I know on calls, right?
Well, and I mean, out of the Frankfurt office, there's really maybe 5-6 people that kind of work on Star Marine. So there's Alex, myself, there's the weapons guys, but some of those guys are working on Star Marine specific things, but they're also working on future stuff.
Absolutely.
And then Lena as well, but then we've got the UK animation team, as well as programming team, as well as John Crew up there, and UI. Exactly. And then in LA, we've got Bender, and when he's not over here or in the UK.
That's cool.
Oh, and the character guys. Sorry, character guys.
Friendly fire modes in Star Marine, ?
It's something we've talked about. I think the big thing for that will be, obviously, how do we kick players in case they're grieving you, as well as making sure that we're giving a clear enough read on that is your teammate, don't shoot them. And in particular with grenades as well. So like when you throw the grenade, that there is an actual grenade icon on your screen, and that's one of that's some of the stuff that's coming in right now, and for us to be able to really say, okay, this is, we're ready to turn that friendly fire switch off, and allow it. But right now it's
back in the
we don't allow you to do it. So.
Back in the day, 15 years ago or so, when I was playing FPS, nobody would let me play with them
because you'd shoot everybody in the back.
If it moved, I shot. Right. So
I'm glad you're not in Army.
I've gotten better now.
I'm glad you're not in Army.
Another question from the community. What happened to the original 2 maps from the original showing of Star Marine, and will we ever see Gold Horizon?
Gold Horizon you will not see in the way that it was previously built. First, there were some inefficiencies from an art standpoint, and then also the way that it was built does not fit in our current modular system. So there was going to be a fair amount of rework that was going to be done on this, but will we see a Gold Horizon type thing again in the future? Yes. Will it be that Gold Horizon that we saw with Elphonic and when I first joined? No, it will not be.
Okay, that's fair. What are you looking forward for the most as far as the next step post 2.6?
Well, for me, most of my attention goes on to 3.0.
Yeah, that's true.
So getting Luke and his team, who's the live team, the AC team, off of their tasks for 2.6 and getting them focused on 3.0 and making sure that all the universe is laid out the way that we need it to do, and all the traversals and everything like that. That to me is the fun part. Now we're actually building a formula and
absolutely.
Figuring out what Star Marine persistent universe is actually going to feel like. And, that's a big thing, and I'm sure I'll go gray a little bit more, but at the same time I'll enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, we will leave it at that. So thanks for taking the time. I know you're always busy. You're always on Skype calls. So
yes.
I had to schedule this ahead of time for him to come here, and he was actually sick yesterday. And so I appreciate everybody watching. Just a little bit of community news. Part 2 of the Q&A and the Prowler goes up later today, so check that out and give you some more information. Also, the anniversary sale is currently going on. It ends this Sunday. We will have some new ships up later today and new ships up again on Saturday. Have you checked it out?
I've seen some of the stuff. I like the Voyager Direct stuff.
Yeah.
Go Drake.
I'm gonna get an Idris. Getting an interest, I have to. All right, man, that wraps it up for the show. Again, appreciate everybody watching, all the support. As subscribers, it's you guys that make this possible. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.